Welcome to Behind the Audition podcast with your host, Curt Hilton. Listen in on interviews with voiceovers, filmmakers, producers, animators, and much more. Curt, a voice actor himself, will give insider tips to the business, talk with guests about how they got into the business, and be sure to stay tuned to the end of the podcast when he challenges his guests with a pop-up audition. Now it's time for Behind the Audition podcast. Here's Curt Hilton.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Audition podcast. On this episode, I got to speak to the amazing voice actor, Paul Schmidt. We talked about how he started as a voice actor, how to correctly connect with businesses on LinkedIn, the future of the gig economy with AI, building a voiceover business and not just being on pay-to-plays. And we also talked about his coaching plan that can help you be successful in the voiceover industry. So sit back and enjoy this episode of Behind the Audition podcast. All right, my next guest, I'm super excited to have on. I have talked to him through social media as well as email, and I've gotten inspired. And I reached out and I was like, you know what, I got to have you on the show. This gentleman tells it how it is and how it should be. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I've actually caught myself doing things I probably shouldn't be doing in the industry. And I want to talk to him about it. And you've heard his voice on Delta, Verizon, PBS, Anthem, Cisco, the Washington football team, and much more. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Paul Schmidt. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Curt. Thanks so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You know, this was I'd probably say 4 months ago. And I was going through a funk of just, you know, a lot of voiceovers do. They do the right steps. They do the marketing. They do the research. And you just kind of lose that marketing motivation. And before we get into that, you have been doing this a long time. And I came across because of the video I saw. But you've been doing this a long time. And you started out, how many years have you been this now? You've been in voiceover?
On and off for 23 years.
Yeah.
I started in broadcast, so you know how that goes. A client will come to you and say, hey, you did our radio spot. Would you do our cable spot, right?
Yeah.
And you lay down the same punchy read as you did for the radio spot. And nobody knows the difference, right? I didn't. The client didn't. Everybody was happy, and I got a few extra bucks. But yeah, it started that way. And then I've been full-time for the last several years. So
yeah. And so when you got into this, what was it that, you know, that hit that little voiceover light bulb? This is what I want to do. This is it. I love this. I want to do it right. What did you do right to start things off in this industry? Because it's a crazy industry, you have to say, right?
yeah, it is. I think for most people, it's like chicken pox. You get it once, and then right, and then you get into it. For me, it actually bit twice. Back when I was radio talent, this was 23 years ago. Like I said, I started doing cable spots from radio spots, right? But I noticed too that the stuff that we were getting in from the local agencies, from the regional agencies, that was all quite a bit better than what we were doing at the radio station, right? So I started to dig into this thing called voice acting. And long story short, I got a book called So You Want to Be a Voiceover Star, written by a guy named Sandy Thomas. Now, in the 90s, you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting a Sandy Thomas spot. He was all over the place. And I actually started a little bit of a pen pal relation. Remember letters? Remember we used to write letters?
Yeah.
So I actually started a bit of a pen pal relationship with Sandy, and he gave me some really good initial advice and a lot of motivation. And I've forgotten your question because I ramble too much.
No. So you got into this industry, and the thing that inspired you, what inspired you the most to want to do this? Because some do it just because they want to be famous. Some do it because they think they're going to be a millionaire. What was it like? You know, this is the career I want to do.
So that first time I got bit, one of the big inspirations was Sandy. And so he kind of gave me, you know, in the book as well, gave me a little bit of coaching on, okay, this is back before the internet, Curt. This is in the days of 5-minute cassette demos, right? Getting an agent, because if you didn't have an agent in those days, you didn't work, right? And, you know, I pounded the pavement as much as I could. I was able to pick up a little bit here and there, but I was never able to get an agent back then. And I got discouraged and I quit, right? And it was tough for me because I really enjoyed the work, but I was still getting a creative outlet because I was still on the air. So let's fast forward. I ended up coming off the air when I had my son. I got into the digital side of radio. I became a digital sales manager for a group of intercom stations. Then I went and sold technology, custom
Mhm.
website applications to Fortune 500 companies, right? Big, long sales cycle stuff,
Right.
complex sales. And I got a ton of training there. And I worked for a company in Rochester, New York, where I was living at the time, called ITX, and they really trained me well in sales and account management and you name it. And I was rather successful there. Um, and so I sold a $1.7 million website to a
Wow.
Fortune 500 company. And one of the project managers for our company said, you know what? Why don't we do an onboarding video for them? Show them how to use the thing. And I said, great, I'll voice it. Well,
Yeah.
no problem. We did that. They loved it. They came back, had us do another couple of videos for them. And every time, Curt, I said to myself, you know what? I love this work. I should do more of this.
Uh-huh.
And the second time I said, I love this work. I should do more of this. And the third time I went, you idiot. You love this work. You should do more of this, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I started to turn it from a passive sort of, I'll still take stuff as it comes to let me start digging in and finding some work myself. And
Yeah.
I had sales training, I had marketing training. Pardon me. So
Uh-huh.
that's what I did. And that was a slow boil for a long time. And then I hit 3 jobs in a row. Had moved to Richmond by this time. Hit 3 jobs in a row where I wasn't very successful, and I really was not enjoying my work. And at the same time, man, I was loving voiceover. And I tell my students this all the time. I was standing about 10 feet on the other side of this wall here, behind my love seat, my living room, and it just like dawn broke. I went, wait a minute. I have web development experience. I have mic experience. I've got a little bit of voiceover coaching.
Hmm.
I have sales experience and marketing experience. Holy crap. I might have, through almost an accident, right? What was formerly a meandering, wandering career, I might have 4 or 5 major skill sets to make a run at this.
Yeah.
Boy, wouldn't that be the greatest thing, right? To
Right.
be able to do this full time. So I spent 6 months on a plan and hatched that plan. And 9 months after that plan went into effect, I went full time. Now
Wow.
that's not typical or likely for people, and I don't necessarily recommend it, but that's what happened. So I got bit by the bug twice.
That's awesome. You brought me back. I think it was like 2000 when I went in for a summer or two. I wasn't really technically interning, but sitting back and watching how they do the radio. I wanted to be a radio DJ
Right.
before I became a voiceover, and I watched how they do it. And then the program director, she put me in the back room to practice reading scripts and everything. And I remember putting everything on a cassette tape. Then there was no putting things on CDs and stuff. And I remember making
Absolutely.
those. I had like a flashback of doing that back then because it was. I think we had more skills back then because you have to edit on those, cool edit and the old programs, or it wasn't so like nowadays you can click one button and it does all the processing and compression and everything you need done for that. But I want to get into the next thing, and that's marketing. And that's one thing I want to give you a shout on first because LinkedIn is probably one of our big go-to social media platforms for as voice actors. Networking is important, but not just you hit one thing one time, and I caught myself doing this. I went from 194 followers probably 5 years ago. Now I'm up to like 3,500, and I did it the first time the wrong way because I was doing connect, 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 and I was connecting one with just voice actors, which is probably not the best thing to do because I'm not trying to sell my service to another voice actor, but I'm not researching what I need to sell to. And so I had to go back, start all over. And I found myself doing what you said is the worst thing, disconnecting and not finding out who you're connecting with. And I want to say thank you because I actually had some quality, networking leads from you because I took the time, research if they're even on there because you made a good point. A lot of them aren't even on there. And they'll say they haven't posted in a while. So don't waste your time connecting. How important is it for those wanting to do this to really take their time on their marketing and networking with those on LinkedIn?
So LinkedIn is like any piece of software, right? It's just a tool. It's just a platform. I think whenever you're talking about any kind of connection, it has to be human to human. And so, and you alluded to this, right? Just to hit the connect button when I receive that connection request and it has no context, it has no reason why you want to connect with me, there's very little chance that I'm going to accept that.
Right.
If there's no context, right? Now, occasionally I have voice actors reach out to me. They just hit the connect button. I go, okay, that's another voice actor. Maybe I can help them. I'll connect. But if you're trying to build a relationship with me to sell me voiceover services,
Mm-hmm.
then be human with me, right?
Right.
Just be real.
Right.
So I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people, not just voice actors, but I think a lot of people make on LinkedIn, right? Number
Mm-hmm.
one is being just relying on the button. That's lazy, and you're really not putting any effort in to build a relationship. The second thing is that I think a lot of people make a mistake in using LinkedIn as a communication platform, and it's not great at that,
Right.
right? And the reason is, even by LinkedIn statistics, if you boil it down and do the math, about I think it's 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 people use LinkedIn even weekly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you send a communication through LinkedIn, you have no idea when that person is going to receive it, right?
Mm-hmm.
With, for example, email, you know that people are in their inboxes constantly all day long, so you have a much higher chance of being able to reach that person in a timely manner, right?
Right.
They may not see it for a month, right? Some people log into LinkedIn once a month or less,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that's another sort of tactical shift that a lot of people can make is don't contact, you can connect with people through LinkedIn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then if you can, then really, if you're going to reach out to them, I recommend reaching out to them off of LinkedIn.
Right. I liked it. I liked it because, Charlie Toro, a really good voice actor that gave me some advice. When you reach out to them, send your voice. Hi, this is Curt. My name's Curt, but you talk in a normal voice. Hi, my name's Curt. I'm a voice actor in Raleigh, North Carolina. I just want to say thanks for connecting.
Yep.
I hope you have a great week. Simple. Not, hey, I'm a voice actor. Want to hire me? You're like,
Right.
who is this guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's
Yeah.
just that it's a great point you gave to connect on LinkedIn, but try to get the connection off the platform so you can have a more personal, realistic conversation.
Well, not only that, and you just brought up another great point, and that is, don't beg,
Right.
right? It's not about hire me. It's
Mm-hmm.
about how can I, what are your problems and how can I solve them for you,
Right.
right? The focus has to be on the client, the prospect, or the lead, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because once we make it about us and what we're trying to get out of somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a relationship. That's a one-sided relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, keep it human and always try and provide value for the people that you're reaching out to.
Wow. And you're gonna like this next thing I talk about. A shout out that these are the YouTubes and your TikToks that I came across that I saw this. And I'm
Mhm.
one that listens, and if I find it valuable, I will take the advice to heart. Like it's because I've done, like I said at the beginning, I've done things like I just shoot an email off and I hope that $150 shoots back into my account and I got an order or whatever. It doesn't work that way. You have to
Right.
make contact. And so what I did was I went old school, and I remember probably 3 years ago, somebody said you need to start local. I went back to my old school method. I picked up the phone and I said, you're a nice guy. You're personable. People like talking to you. They hear your voice. That's one good thing. They know what you sound like normally. Two, what are you offering and why are you calling me? So I did what you did. I made phone call. I called all the local production houses, introduced myself. I asked about their business. I didn't call, say, hey, I'm a voiceover. Can I be on your list? They get those every day. They get those emails every day. I asked about their business. I asked, what kind of services do you do? What kind of video production do you do? And because I have clients who reach out to me, and I'm sure you do too. Do you know a good production house? Somebody can do animation. How important is it to talk more about the place you're calling than about you?
Well, whether it's a call or an email, whatever it is, when I talk about providing value, it's absolutely that. It's being interested in your prospect and the problem that they have to solve every day. I
Right.
think that there's, a lot of voice actors come in through an acting background, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as actors, if we come in that way, we're not necessarily trained as business people, right? And our conventional, traditional way to get business is through the audition, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to market yourself to businesses directly or production houses directly, it's more about solving a valid business problem than it is, oh, I'm here to audition, right? At some
Right.
point, it may come down to that. But to even get on a roster, you've got to cut through the myriads of other voice actors that are reaching out, especially if it's a production house, right?
Mhm.
Because that's easy, low-hanging fruit, and every voice actor in the world is going to reach out to production houses.
Right.
You got to be able to cut through, right?
Right.
And so your tactic rather, of making it about them, asking them about their problems, getting an understanding of the kind of work that they do, and whether or not you're even a fit,
Hmm.
right? If a given production house does nothing but medical animation, right, and you
Right.
don't do medical narration or have no interest in it, you're not a fit for them.
Right.
So research what you can ahead of time so that when you get that prospect in front of you, whether it's by email or by phone, you're asking smart, educated questions, not stuff that you could have found out on the internet.
Absolutely. No feedback for those listening that decide to do this. Word to the wise, please go to their website and look at their website, what services they offer, and don't ask them because they're going to say, well, didn't you look at my website? And then they're going to make you feel like this big, you know. But at the end of the day, I will say your pointer, I'm over on 20 production companies' rosters just by making that phone call. So thank you for that. And, you know, I went from being off pay to play. I'm on some pay to play sites. I don't pay for any of them now. So I just want to get you on here and tell you thank you for those. But at the same time, people listening to Paul, take what he says and listen and actually do the work. Don't just say, okay, I'll do it. You have to do it. Agree?
Yeah, I mean, I tell my students the same thing. Look, I can give you a proven plan and a process and a program that is tested and proven, that has been reviewed by, university consultants. But if it sits there on the shelf, it sits
Right.
there on the shelf. It's not going to get you any work. You got to put the work in, right? And that's
Right.
true whether you're a student of mine or not. The one thing I wanted to circle back on, Kurt, was while cold calling can be a really good way to get business, especially in your local area, because let's face it, with those local production houses, you're going to have more of an opportunity for in real life FaceTime, right? Not
Right.
over Zoom, not over Source Connect.
Right.
So to start those relationships out with a cold call, I think makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Cold calling, though, is not necessarily scalable because there's so much waste in cold calling, right? Some
Yeah.
statistics will tell you that you'll only get somebody on the line live 1 out of every 18 times.
Hmm.
That's a lot of wasted effort.
Right.
More importantly, it's a lot of wasted time.
Hmm.
And I've said this 1,000 times. Your most valuable asset as a voice actor and as an entrepreneur is time, right?
Right.
Because especially if you're starting this as a side hustle, you've got precious little time to really get that, remember the old Sisyphus, right, story?
Yeah.
Trying to get that rock rolling up the hill, and the exact time in your career where you've got to create the most effort and most push is at the exact time in your career where you have the least time,
Right.
right?
Right.
Starting as a side hustle. That changes a little bit when you go full time,
Hmm.
but your time is still your most precious asset. So
Absolutely.
you got to protect that. Anything that can help you scale your time will help you be more effective with your time. So while I think in some circumstances cold calling can be a good tactic, I think generally to generate the number of leads that you need to in order to get that ball rolling, I think cold calling can be a big time suck.
Absolutely. And I think that you said it too with, pay to play sites. For those getting into this early, they rely on the pay to play sites. They rely on that being their moneymaker, and that's it. And there are some like we've heard and we've seen they make, good six figures. But what happens, like some of these sites, they start charging less and giving less. And I know we all got to play the game. I get it. But it's for you to
Sure.
determine, do you want to play that game, or do you want to
Right.
be a business, and do you want to keep things going and affordable? Because if there are people out there who aren't working for $25 an hour, why would you work for $5 an hour? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because at the end
Right.
of the day, this is a business. What do you think of pay to plays in this time we're in now? And where do you see it in like 5 years? Do you think we're going to be like all the other gig economy kind of platforms?
I think we kind of are now, right? We're
Yeah.
seeing signs of that already. Voices.com clearly doesn't see the other voiceover pay to plays as their competition. They see Fiverr as their competition, right? And so they very recently dropped their lower threshold to $5 a job. What
Hmm.
a coincidence, right?
Right.
So, and I'm not sure strategically where they're going to go with that because I think in another 5 years, most of that sort of low ball work is going to be wiped out by AI anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be done by synthetic voice. That's already started.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not going to be work that the trained voice actor is going to lose because
Right.
that's not where we're competing anyway, right?
Right.
That's going to wipe out the Fiverr talent, the Upwork talent, the people per hour talent, right? The people that haven't invested in training, that don't know how to sound human and authentic and
Mm-hmm.
real and messy, and that all that work's going to go away. I'm not a big fan of the pay to plays in general. I think some are better than others. VO Planet is fantastic. Badalgo, fantastic. Cast Voices, Liz Atherton's platform,
Mm-hmm.
which is fairly new, is great. These people have the best interest of the voice actor and the clients at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the others don't, right? Most of the others are just trying to make a buck in as, any way they can do it. Voices, in my opinion, clearly does not care about the voice talent, right? They keep taking a bigger chunk, and it never comes out of the client's wallet; it comes out of our wallet,
Right.
and they're pretty shameless about it. And so, especially with this last move, I would never recommend anybody getting into this business touch voices.com. That's my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Right.
what do you think about those? When I first started doing this, I wasn't full time. I did things. I ran a DJ business as well as I did voiceover stuff on the side. What do you think about those who think if you're going to do it, you got to go full time and go all in, or those that say part time? What do you tell your new students? Like, don't just jump in at full time, or you know what? Make sure you have something back up when you first get into this.
Yeah, this is not I'm going to get trained today and in 6 months I'm going to be making enough money to support myself kind of
Right.
business,
Right.
right? Very few are. Uh, Look, if you were to buy a Chick-fil-A franchise, you would spend months and months and months in training, learning how to run that thing, right?
Great.
Why
I
would
love
you
that.
not do that as a voice actor, right?
Right.
So I would caution anybody, if you're going to do this and you have no experience, do not jump into this full time. It's foolish
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to be jumping in with absolutely no training, with probably inferior gear, and competing with actors that have done this. Like, I did an audition last week, and my coach happened to be the casting director on the job, and she told me, you got shortlisted, but there were A-list Hollywood celebrities on this casting, right? So if you're going to jump in full time with no experience, do you really think you're going to beat out A-list Hollywood celebrities and voice actors who compete with them? Right? That's just insane. It takes a lot of training to even get good enough to do your first demo. And I don't mean a weekend, and I don't mean a few weeks. I mean it takes months, right? To be able to be competent so that you can go out in the world with a competent demo and charge what pros charge. My big
Absolutely.
pet peeve is people say to me, "Well, I'm new. I charge less." In what other business is being new an excuse to charge less, right? Do you get less on your airline ticket because your pilot's a rookie, right?
Oh
Do you
my
get
gosh. Yeah.
50% off your surgery because your surgeon just got out of his fellowship? No, right? If you have baseline amount of training, if you're competent in your field, then
Mm-hmm.
you charge what professionals charge. And so, yeah, I think anybody that would jump into this full time is an absolute fool. I think conventional wisdom says that it takes 3 to 5 years, sometimes a little bit more, to build a solid clientele in this business. And I
Yeah.
think that's at least 100 repeat clients,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't happen overnight. That takes a lot of hard work.
That is great advice. It's so funny. I just talked to one of my coaches the other day, and I said, "Thank you for the opportunity for that audition." And she's like, "Huh?" And I'm like, "I was against one of the top A-listers, and at first I was like let down. I thought I rocked out this audition, and then I found out who it was. I wasn't let down. I was like, that motivated me to work
Yeah.
harder and to follow what that person does. And it was what you said, coaching. Keep practicing. Sell the performance. It's not just reading, it's performing and getting with your coaches. I have two coaches I get with all the time. And I have a student. I don't just work on voice acting coaching. I work on content strategies. I work on other things. I think people think voiceover coaching is just voiceover coach. It's not. It's your social media. It's your content. It's how you put yourself out there and how to be professional. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. I think as a business, Kurt, we do a fantastic job of training people to do the work and a lousy job at training people to find the work,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I think, that most new voice actors underestimate what it takes to find the work,
Hmm.
and for good reason. We don't teach it, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what got me into my program and talking to voice actors and what's holding them back. I talked to about almost 70 voice actors last fall to
Wow.
find out, okay, what's holding people back? What are they afraid of? What are the sticking points, right?
Yeah.
And a fear of marketing, lack of knowledge about marketing, uh, a real sense that they're going to annoy people, right? Like
Hmm.
there's a sleazy stigma to sales and marketing. But when we approach this from an aspect of service, from a perspective of service, in that I'm here to solve your problem, and if you could do this yourself, you would,
Hmm.
right? Then we understand our own value and we get grounded in our own value. Um, but yeah, I think that in terms of finding the work, that's like you can't go to any conference, right? There'll be 50 performance coaches. And then on the marketing side, there'll be Mark and Tom, right? Who I
Right.
have great respect for both of them,
Right.
right? But outside of those two, Anne Ganguza does a little bit of marketing in what she does, right? She's mostly corporate narration, but there aren't enough, in my opinion, good business coaches in this business. We've got a few snake oil salesmen, that's for sure.
Right. Right.
We all know who those guys are, but the people that are teaching uh, what the business really is, the realities of it, how to go about finding the work are few and far between.
Absolutely. And now it's time that I like to do. It's time to have some fun. It's time for the audition challenge. I have something I'm sending to your chat right now, and
Okay.
I do love your corporate narration, your e-learning. You have that. I mean, I would hire you for every corporate narration video because you have that perfect, relaxing, soothing tone that really sells performance. I made something for you, and this is something if you probably reading the script, something that you push all the time. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
This is my script.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. All right. I should have grabbed my glasses before I sat down. All right. Welcome to your first day at I Want to Be a Voice Actor. Day one, stay away from those $5 jobs. Remember, most of you won't go to work for corporate America for $25 an hour. So let's remember, you can be a voice actor, but let's do it the right way.
Isn't that perfect? That's something I can totally
Man,
hear you saying.
you know how to put a guy on the spot, and you're a master suck up, which I love. So thank you for those kind words.
Oh no, no, no. Before I let you go, I always like my cliche question is, what words of wisdom? Talk about your coaching plan, how they can go to your website, and what advice would you give to those getting into this industry and what to stay away from? Because I love the way you put it.
Okay, so I guess we'll try and knock those off in order, and if I forget anything, just give me a little nudge.
Absolutely.
So the program that I developed actually came out of those conversations with those 70 voice actors last year. I took data from 55. Some folks were a little too new, right, to have a frame of reference. And what came out of those conversations, Curt, was three things. One, money was not the primary driver for voice actors. The two things that came up over and over again were freedom and flexibility, right? People want to have some agency over their lives, right? Over the kind of work that they do, the hours that they do it in, the kind of people that they want to work with, to be able to balance family, kids and maybe parents and, community and faith and all this grown-up stuff that we've got to figure out and balance and make work in our lives. People want the freedom and flexibility to do that, right? And voice acting can offer that. Number two is, the old joke about us voice actors being stuck in our tiny little padded rooms talking to ourselves, right? What we do is isolating. And there's, then you throw a 2.5 year pandemic in, and there's this real sense of isolation and a yearning for connectedness and support and accountability and mentoring and all that stuff, right? Because it can get a little, like I isolate very well, right? And I love the solitude of being a voice actor, but man, 2.5 years later, even I got a little squirrely. You know what I
Mm-hmm,
mean?
mm-hmm.
And then the third thing was, people were telling me all the time, look, there's a billion, and I mean no disrespect by saying this, but
Yeah.
there are a billion podcasts. There are a billion videos on YouTube, right? Which I
Hmm.
do myself.
Right.
There are books, there are seminars, webinars. There's an endless stream of tips and tricks, but nobody's showing us how to put it all together, right? Nobody, it's like a big 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle. Nobody's saying, look, dude, start with the corners, group all
Yeah.
the light colors together, right?
Hmm.
Find your border pieces, right?
Right.
Nobody's giving us a process
Right.
to assemble all those tips and tricks. And so what I developed is called the VO Freedom Master Plan. Freedom to try and communicate that it is about building a life and not just a business and a career. And master plan to try and communicate that this is a process that we teach, right? It's not just do this, do that, do the other thing. And so there are three elements to the program. One is an online curriculum. The second is an online community of students only, members only,
Hmm.
such that when one person has a problem or an issue, we get input from a lot of different voices, people that have been through the program, people that have worked it, right? Those people that are not that far along, they end up learning too. So we all learn faster and go further together. And then the third element is an extension of that, which is weekly group coaching calls with the students in the program. If you can't make the call, we record them. You can watch them on the back end. And so that, in a nutshell, is the VO Freedom Master Plan. You can get more information on it at vofreedommasterplan.com.
Love it. I love it. And the last thing is, what words of wisdom, things to do and not to do, getting into this industry?
Number one, if you're brand new, do your research, right? Join the Facebook groups, lurk, listen, linger, right? Over time, the reputable people will, through repetition, their names will start to come up over and over again. You will learn who they are. Second is invest in training. You cannot compete with world-class voice actors or even competent voice actors with no training, right?
Hmm.
Get good training. It all starts there.
Hmm.
Number three is make sure that you are ready before you do your demos. Don't go to a demo mill. Do not, take a weekend webinar and decide that you're going to get a demo done after that, or take the demo that comes with the webinar.
Right.
This takes months, not
Right.
weeks or days, right? Things to stay away from. I would stay away from the pay-to-plays, right? Not all of them. I think the pay-to-plays are useful for two reasons. Number one, and I'm going to contradict myself here. When you're getting your audition process down, and you need a volume of auditions to do that, right? You need 15, 20, 25 auditions a day. I think a good pay-to-play is a good source for that, right? Because it's as close to simulating game conditions as you can possibly get, because you are auditioning for real work, right? And I
Hmm.
think people need that pressure and that urgency. But I also think you need to get your audition process streamlined so that you can knock out an audition in 5 to 7 to 8 minutes, right?
Absolutely.
I think there's a use there. I also think that in the odd circumstance that you lose a huge client and you've already gone full time and there's no safety net, you can get short-term business in the door by jumping on the pay-to-plays. I will always tell you that a client is much more valuable than a job, but sometimes, in rare instances, you need to get a few jobs in the door.
I love it. You have been so great to have on the show. I definitely have to have you back on again. There's so much more I want to talk about. Time is a thing now with these recordings nowadays. But thank you so much for taking time to speak with me today. Thank you, Paul Schmidt, for being on Behind the Audition podcast.
Curt, it was my pleasure, man. If you have me back, I'd love to chat again. And thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
For more information about Paul Schmidt, go to paulschmidtvoice.com or paulschmidtpro.com.
Thanks for listening in on Behind the Audition podcast, made possible by Hilton Productions. If you need a male or female voiceover, contact us at hiltonproductions.com. Hilton Productions, let our voices do the selling.